Hey guys, thanks for joining Learn to Play. My name is Lance, and today we're going to take a look at Ghostbusters. This is Cryptozoic's newest game. It's a 1 to 4 player game where each player will take on one of the original Ghostbusters roles. And again, they're fighting in New York to try to close gates and trap ghosts. So each mission takes roughly 45 minutes to an hour and a half to play, depending upon the one that you choose. There's also a couple of campaigns that are included in the box that will combine 4 different scenarios together, and the Ghostbusters will retain their experience as they go along these. And each one will culminate with a major boss that includes Slimer, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and a couple of others. So let's head to the table and I'll teach you how to play. Alright, so here we have one of the Ghostbusters, Dr. Venkman, and his card. At the bottom of his card he has his experience track, and you can go ahead and clip on one of the little arrows at the 0 spot to mark his experience. As he busts ghosts and closes gates, he will gain experience points, and as he gains experience he'll move up in levels. As he moves up in levels he'll gain new abilities, and these abilities are all cumulative, so as he moves from the first level to the second level, he'll gain that ability and he'll retain the first level ability. Alright, so here we have the first scenario in one of the campaigns that's included in the base set. So on the top of the card it's going to give a little bit of backstory about what's going on in the Ghostbusters' lives at the moment. In the middle it's going to have any special rules for this scenario, and usually it gives information about what kind of gates you're going to be facing. After that we have the gates and what you're going to need to hit them, how many streams you're going to need to close them, and what happens when you miss placing a stream on one of the gates. After that we have the scenario results that'll give us the success and fail of the scenario, and then we have the results for the event dice when you roll those during the end of each turn. On the back of the card it's going to give us the outline of the map we're going to be playing on, and it's also going to tell us where the ghosts go and which classes we're going to be using, and then it also gives us the number of ghosts of each type that are going to be in the spirit world to start. Alright, so for setup, you go ahead and follow the instructions that are on the scenario. So we've gone ahead and set up the first scenario in Campaign 1, the Slimer situation. And once you have all your ghosts set up and your gates, you'll go ahead and randomly place those out based on the locations that are on the card. You're also going to go ahead and place all the ghosts that are in the spirit world in there listed on the card. From there, make sure you have your PK meter out with its movement dice, the Ecto 1 tile with the Ghostbusters in it, because they're going to start in there. On the scenario it's going to list where the Ecto 1 will start, so we've placed our Ecto 1 in one of those 2 slots. After that, then each person will choose a Ghostbuster to play as. In all scenarios, all 4 Ghostbusters have to be present, so even if you don't have 4 players, some players may control more than one. After each player has made their selection, then you go ahead and give them their color-coded stream tokens, and each player gets 1 dice. After that, we are ready to start the scenario. Alright, so now I'd like to go over train features. And with these features, they're going to apply to the Ghostbusters mainly. The only thing that these features will do for the ghosts is affect their line of sight. But other than that, the ghosts are free to move through any of these features, whether they're impassable or not. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is the solid yellow line, which Ghostbusters cannot draw line of sight through, but they can move through them. The next one are the solid orange lines, which Ghostbusters can see through, but they cannot move through or be pushed through them. The next one is the solid red lines, which Ghostbusters cannot move through or see through. And then the last one we have are the dotted red lines that are around the gates. With those, the Ghostbusters can see through the line into the gate so that they can target the gate, but they cannot draw line of sight through them, nor can they move through those gates while they're open. When the gate is closed and turned over, it is considered a free space and can be moved through as normal unless other features block it. Alright, so Ghostbusters is played in a number of turns, and each turn is consisted of 3 phases. The first phase is the Ghostbuster phase, where each Ghostbuster will activate in order. And each Ghostbuster will get 2 actions to spend during their phase to do various things, which we'll go into more detail with soon. After they're all done, then it'll move into the end of round phase where you'll resolve any end of round effects. And then finally you'll roll the event dice to determine what happens. And then that phase will come to an end. Alright, so as we talked about earlier, during the Ghostbusters phase, each Ghostbuster will activate in the order that they're in, or based on the first player. During their activation, each Ghostbuster will have 2 actions to spend on various things. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of those actions now. So Dr. Venkman is the first one to go, and we're going to want to try to perform a move action with him. So when you perform a move action, you're allowed to move the Ghostbuster up to 2 spaces in any direction, both orthogonally and diagonally, as long as you don't interact with any of the terrain features we've already discussed that you can't move through, and you cannot move through or stomp on a space with a ghost. You are allowed to move through other Ghostbusters though, as long as you don't stomp on their space. Alright, so the next action we're going to look at is the drive action, which will allow the Ghostbusters to move to Ecto 1. With the Ecto 1, you're only allowed to move orthogonally, so there is no diagonal movement with it. It is allowed to move up to 6 spaces from its current position, either drawing it from the front or the back. And it is not allowed to move through ghosts or open gates or anything else that the Ghostbusters normally couldn't move through. So when you move it, let's go ahead and take a look at an example. We can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Alright, so the next action we're going to look at is the Deposit Trap Ghosts action. And the Ghostbusters have rigged the Ecto 1 with a dimensional meter, which will allow them to deposit the ghosts that they capture, and that will transport them back to the spirit world. So in order to do this, a Ghostbuster has to be either adjacent to one of the spaces surrounding the Ecto 1, or has to be inside it, and he has to have direct line of sight to it as well. So, for example, let's go ahead and take a look at Dr. Venkman, who has captured a ghost from the previous round. So his first action would be to move adjacent to the Ecto 1, which he could be in any one of these spaces. He could not work it from this side because he would not have direct line of sight due to the red line. When he has direct line of sight and he's adjacent to it, he spends his second action and he would deposit the ghost into the Ecto 1's dimensional meter and move it back to the spirit world. Alright, so the next action we're going to look at is removing slime from adjacent Ghostbuster that you also need to have line of sight to. So during your turn, for each action point you spend, you can remove 1 point of slime from another Ghostbuster. And if you do this, let's say with Winston, if you remove slime from Ray, since Ray has not gone yet this turn, then Ray would regain those action points and be able to spend those during his turn. If Winston had removed it from Dr. Venkman, Dr. Venkman has already gone this turn and so would not regain those action points to spend during this turn. Alright, so the last action we're going to talk about is the combat action that Ghostbusters can take. But before we cover that, I'd like to cover a couple other important features that are going to affect that. So the first thing is line of sight. And with line of sight, both ghosts and Ghostbusters can draw line of sight up to 3 spaces away in any direction, as long as it is not affected by some of the terrain features we've already talked about. So red lines, dashed lines, or yellow lines will block line of sight. On top of that, for Ghostbusters, other ghosts will block line of sight. So like I said, ghosts and Ghostbusters have line of sight up to 3 spaces away, and if there's any kind of question, then you can go ahead and draw an imaginary line from the Ghostbusters space corners to the space that you're trying to seize corner. As long as you can do that without passing any type of terrain feature or other ghost, then you have line of sight to that ghost. Alright, so next we're going to take a look at an example of one of the ghost cards. At the top of the card, it's going to list the ghost's name as well as his class. Then we're going to have his to hit value to add a stream to him, and how many streams it takes to capture him. After that, we have his to hit results, which refer us to the trap, and then it's when he's trapped and the results to that, and it shows a picture of what happens with that as well. When he's missed, what his effects are, and it also shows a picture of that so that you can reference that. and then his special ability. And we have pictures to show what happens there too. Alright, so the first example of a combat action we're going to look at is a simple one between Dr. Venkman and the Galloping Ghoul in front of him. So the first thing you want to do is grab the Galloping Ghoul's card and check the 2-hit value on that card. So with the Galloping Ghoul, we need a 3 or better to add a stream to that ghost. So we're going to go ahead and roll Dr. Venkman's dice. And he rolls a 4, so he adds a stream. And we look at the Galloping Ghoul's 2-trap value, which is 1 stream. So we have trapped the ghost, and then we go to his when trapped results, and it says each Ghostbuster adjacent to the Galloping Ghoul gets slimed, and then place it on the character's card. So there are no Ghostbusters adjacent to the Galloping Ghoul, so he's going to be removed and added Dr. Venkman's card, and then Dr. Venkman will gain 1 experience point for having 1 stream on him. Alright, so the next example we're going to look at are the more complex ones, whether they're higher class ghosts, ghost bosses, or gates. Those are going to require multiple streams in order to capture or close them. Each Ghostbuster has a total of 5 streams that they can attach to a single target. If during their turn they've already gotten streams on a target, so let's say Winston has gotten a stream onto the gates, and then they change targets, or if the Ghostbuster loses line of sight due to ghosts moving and blocking his target, he would lose any streams that are currently on that target. So let's say, for example, the ghoul comes out of the gate and this one was up here. Now he cannot block, or he cannot see the gate because his line of sight is blocked. And since he had a stream on there already, then that would be removed from that target because he can no longer see it. Alright, so let's go ahead and look at an example of closing a gate now with multiple streams. So we're going to go ahead and take Winston and take a shot on this gate. And so he's going to need a 4 or better to add a stream to it, because that's what it says on the scenario card. And so he rolled a 2. So if you check under the gate, it says to close is 2 streams, and when missed, a ghost from the spirit world emerges from the gate. So anytime you miss targeting a gate in this scenario, you would spawn a ghost, and it's always going to be the lowest level ghost that's in the spirit world. So right now they're Galloping Ghouls, and it'll spawn from the gate in a random direction. So you use the PK meter, and you roll the 8-sided dice, and we rolled a 1. So on the gate, it'll spawn in the 1 position. So if the gate was the center point, this 1 is up here. Alright, and then he's going to go ahead and try again with his second action, which he does. So he's going to go ahead and add a stream to that gate, and then it would move to the next Ghostbuster, who is Ray. Ray can draw line of sight to the gate, so he's going to go ahead and try. He rolls a 5, so he adds a stream to the gate, which, if we consult the chart again, it says 2 streams to close, so they have successfully closed the gate. So the gate would get turned over, and then both Ghostbusters that had a stream on there, so Winston and Ray, would gain 1 experience point, so we'd move their tracks up by 1, and then they would receive their streams back. Alright, so the last thing I'm going to cover real quick is an example of a Ghostbuster targeting a higher class ghost. So with this example, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Gruesome Twosome. And in order to put a stream on them, we're going to need a 4 or better. So Spangler's going to go ahead and take a shot because he has line of sight. And he misses. So he needed a 4, he rolled a 3. So when he misses, this ghost will move 1 space towards that Ghostbuster, and then he'll move 1 space in a random direction. So he'll move up 1, and then he's going to move in a random direction, so he's going to move over. And for for Spangler's second action, he's going to go ahead and try again. And so he rolls a 5, so this time he does get to add a stream to the ghost. But with the Gruesome Twosome, it takes 2 streams to trap, so then we're going to go to the to-hit value, or the when hit, and it says it moves 1 space towards that Ghostbuster. So the Gruesome Twosome would move 1 space towards him, which would put him on it, so then he's going to continue moving until he gets to a free space. So since he crossed the space that a Ghostbuster was on, that Ghostbuster will receive a slime token, and Spangler still has line of sight to him because he sees 360, so the stream will stay on, and that'll end his turn. Alright, so as I talked about earlier, there is one other way to remove slime from a Ghostbuster, and that's for him to do it himself. So as we saw earlier, Spangler had gotten slimed from the gruesome twosome, and there's no other Ghostbusters that are adjacent to him. So during his turn, he can choose not to spend any of his actions to remove 1 point of slime from his character card. He is allowed to perform one of the maneuvers we already talked about, but he cannot perform any other actions if he wanted to remove some slime himself. Alright, so now that we've covered all the different actions that Ghostbusters can perform, there's one other thing that they can do during their turn, which is called a maneuver. With a maneuver, it allows them to perform one of two actions, either at the beginning of their turn, after their first action, or after all their actions are completed. This is a free thing, so they can also spend an action to do this, but they get to do it once during their turn for free. So the first one is called Transferring Trapped Ghosts, which is going to allow a Ghostbuster to move ghosts from his card to an adjacent Ghostbuster's card, as long as he has line of sight to that Ghostbuster and is adjacent. When he does this, a Ghostbuster will move all the ghosts or some of the ghosts from his card to another Ghostbuster's card. He can also do this with a Ghostbuster that he's adjacent to that's in the Ecto 1. Alright, so the second option for a maneuver the Ghostbuster could choose to perform is to enter or exit the Ecto 1. So as long as the Ghostbuster is in one of the 4 long side adjacent spaces to the Ecto 1, and he's not blocked by train features, he's allowed to move into the Ecto 1, which you would move him over and place him on the Ecto 1 token, or he can exit the Ecto 1 and move into one of those 4 spaces as long as it's unoccupied by another figure or a ghost, and it's not blocked by train features. He can also do this as part of his move action, so if a Ghostbuster is in there and he performs a move action, he would be able to spend his first point of movement to step out, and then he'd have 1 more point to spend. Alright, so now that all the Ghostbusters have gone, and we're ready to move into the end of round phase. So during this phase, we're going to check the ghost cards and the scenario card for any end of round conditions. Once those are resolved, then we're going to go ahead and roll the event dice. There are 6 different symbols on the event dice. 5 of them correspond to each one of the gates, and if you roll one of those symbols, you'll consult the scenario card. Based on if the gate is open or closed, there's different results for that. The last symbol on the dice is the chaos symbol, and if you roll that, all ghosts that are within 3 spaces of Ghostbusters and have line of sight to them will react as if the Ghostbuster had targeted them and missed on their card. So you'll consult each one of the cards and you'll resolve those results based on the ghost's class, so the lowest class will go first. If those ghosts move, you would roll one time on the BKE meter, and that result will affect all the ghosts that would need to move. Now, the other thing with ghosts is if they move off the board, they are removed from the game completely, unless on their card it specifically says that they cannot move off the board. And this is the case with some boss ghosts or things like that. Now, there is one condition in that with if the ghosts move off the board, they are not returned to the spirit world, and if at any time you need to spawn a ghost and the spirit world is empty of ghosts, the Ghostbusters have automatically lost the game. Alright, so I'd like to cover some of the specific rules for the Ecto 1. So the first one is moving in and out of it. So as long as a Ghostbuster is in one of the 4 adjacent spaces to the Ecto 1, and as long as there aren't any train features blocking it, you may enter or exit from one of those 4 spaces. When a Ghostbuster moves into it, he is moved onto the Ecto 1 tile. When he's in the Ecto 1, he may only perform certain actions, which are to drive the Ecto 1, to move out of it as his move action, or to transfer ghosts from Ghostbusters that are adjacent to the Ecto 1 in one of the 10 spaces, or to transfer ghosts inside the Ecto 1 from him to the spirit realm. While a Ghostbuster is inside the Ecto 1, he may not remove slime from himself or other Ghostbusters, whether they're inside the Ecto 1 or outside, and Ghostbusters outside cannot remove slime from Ghostbusters inside the Ecto 1. Ghostbusters may also not perform any combat actions from inside the Ecto 1. Alright, so with ghosts, if for example with the Galloping Ghoul, if he is trapped, he would cause all spaces adjacent to him to get slimed. If he slimes the Ecto 1, all Ghostbusters inside it would get slimed. And if for some reason a ghost needs to move into one of the spaces the Ecto 1 is on and stop there, he would go ahead and stop and stay on the Ecto 1. While a ghost is on the Ecto 1, you may not drive it, and you may not transfer ghosts to the dimensional meter while a ghost is on the Ecto 1. The only way you can do it is either to get out of it and trap him, or have another Ghostbuster that's outside trap him, or if he moves off for some reason, and then you can proceed as normal. Alright, so thank you for watching the video. I hope this was helpful for you. If you liked it, please think of subscribing to my channel and liking the video, and please let me know if you have any comments or questions below. I'm always willing to answer anything I can, and if not, enjoy the game. See you guys next time.